At the Institute of International Education, we place great emphasis on study abroad, and of course you'd expect us to do that because for the past almost 100 years we've been all about studying abroad. But we know that study abroad has to bring benefits to students, not just in terms of their study, but also in terms of their professional and workplace environment. Recently we conducted a survey of many returned students who'd had study abroad experiences over the past 5 to 10 years, and our report is looking at the impacts of study abroad on employability. There are a number of things that we discovered, and certainly one of the things that we feel is a very important outcome of studying overseas is that it does help students to develop their 21st century workplace skills. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean the kinds of soft skills that we often talk about in terms of leadership, in terms of the ability to communicate well with others, forming teams, being very task focused, but also getting on well with others. These are all skills that are extremely important and something that employers are looking increasingly at, as well as your specific technical skills that you get from your speciality or a degree. And we certainly have evidence to suggest that studying overseas helps you to develop those skills, and that's a very important part of helping you to gain better jobs in the future. Something else that our respondents told us through the survey is that for most students, maybe 50% or more, then studying overseas gave them career confidence. What I mean by that is that for many people, studying overseas might be one of the first big tasks they have to take on, one of the first challenges. So if they go through that challenge and have a successful experience, which almost all of them do, and that experience doesn't have to be for a whole year, it could just be for a few weeks or a few months, but the very fact that they go through that experience and overcome the challenges that it presents gives them much more confidence when they're applying for jobs, because then applying for jobs is not the first time they've really had to put themselves out there, if you like. And certainly we find that many employers also value highly the skills that come about from study overseas, and the very fact that a student's shown initiative to go onto a program that takes them to some other part of the world is extremely valuable to the employer as well. Having said all of that, study overseas is not all plain sailing, and please don't expect just because you go on a program overseas that will suddenly turn yourself and your career around overnight. It does require a lot of effort and input, especially from the student. And one of the first things that you need to bear in mind is you need to be quite deliberate about what kind of career you'd like to go into after you graduate or when you're looking further on down the line, and matching that to the kind of overseas skills experience that you're looking for. So it might be, for example, that you want to go and study in a country that's particularly strong in, say, AI, because you see yourself having a future in artificial intelligence. Or it might be that you're interested in countries that have, for example, a great reputation in hospitality. That could include places like Switzerland, for example. And therefore, thinking about what you want to do, and then to an extent, matching that with the kind of destination you have in mind, that we found is a very important stepping stone. And those people who hadn't been so careful in the way they thought about where they wanted to go, who just said, well, go there because my friend's been there and they say it's a great place and the weather's lovely. Well, that's fine, you still have a fine experience, but it doesn't relate so much to the career that you see yourself developing in years to come. So one of our key pieces of advice is that you think carefully about what you want to do and then think about where you want to go for your overseas study. Another factor that we discovered from our survey is that basically the more time you spend overseas, the greater impact it has on your career. So if you go for a few weeks, that's also a very valuable experience. That tends to be good at developing your team working skills and developing your ability to work with others and maybe take on leadership positions, because that's what you would spend a lot of your time doing during, say, a shorter program. Whereas if you go overseas for maybe 6 months or a year or so, then you'll tend to confront and have to deal with cultural differences and overcome perhaps more deeply rooted challenges that really help you to understand the world and help others around you to understand you. And certainly, again, one of the key benefits that employers see from study abroad is that it helps people to become more bicultural and multicultural, that they can understand they're more able to fit into a new culture and really thrive in that culture. And that takes time and effort. It's not something that will just come naturally. And certainly the time that you spend in an overseas study experience will help you to develop those skills and become more employable as a result. And then the other important factor that we discovered from our respondents was that the less familiar the destination culturally and in terms of what what you've experienced before in your lifetime, actually the more benefit that has for you in terms of developing your cross-cultural skills, developing your sense of self-confidence, perhaps your linguistic skills. Many students, for example, English-speaking students, might choose to go to an English-speaking country for their overseas experience. So US students might decide to go to Australia or the UK, or vice versa. Australian students might decide to go to the US for their study experience overseas. And that's fine, they'll have a great time, they'll make lots of friends, but the indications are that if you choose a country where the culture is a little different and therefore more challenging, it will help you to develop culturally and in terms of your sensitivity and in terms of your ability to get on with people from different backgrounds. And that, at the end of the day, and I speak as somebody who chose to go to a less familiar destination, I think it's harder at the beginning because things are much less familiar for you, but the rewards in the long run I think are particularly rich, and I would encourage you to think carefully, not just from your career perspective, but also in terms of really diving into a new culture and thinking about the benefits that will bring for you. But whatever you choose to do, then best of luck. When I talk about diving into the culture, what I mean by that is that, of course, if you go overseas to study, you will undoubtedly seek out the friendships from people who come from the same country or the same culture, and enjoying an overseas experience with people who come from the same culture as you is also in itself very rewarding. But what's really important is that you actually spend as much time as you can being part of the local community, because that's what will really make the difference, and that's what will help you to develop yourself both professionally and personally. So look for volunteer projects, look for friends from the local community that you can communicate with. Do your best to learn the local language. Most people in local communities are very flattered even if you've managed just to say a few words of their own language. They appreciate that hugely. Whatever it is that you're doing and whatever your academic subject, that's really important, but you will learn and develop just as much outside the classroom if you take as many advantages as you can in terms of being involved in local community. That's really, really important. And you can often tell, and I speak now as an employer, you can often tell the difference between students who've come back from an overseas experience who have gone deep into society and those who've maybe been more cautious. And generally the people that have been more proactive in the way they engage with the local community are the ones that benefit the most. The other question that you may have, and many people have, is who is overseas study actually for? Who are the people that should go for overseas study? And our answer to that question is it could be virtually anybody. Traditionally you might think it's an undergraduate student who's maybe done 2 years of their degree, looking to do something for half a term or half a semester or just a summer program. That is, if you like, your classic overseas study experienced student. But actually we find, and our programs will support this, that people benefiting from overseas study come from all kinds of places. It may well be people who have already been working for a number of years that decide that they want to do something overseas to develop their skills. It could be entrepreneurs. We help to run a fantastic program called WeTech, which is helping women from developing countries working in technology to go to Silicon Valley to learn about how things work there. And this is like a tool through program that's aimed very specifically not at students but at adults who are pursuing an entrepreneurial career. So it can be academics, it can be administrators, it could be people from all walks of life. And if you go onto IIE's website, you'll see the many wide variety of programs that we have on offer. The other important factor about study overseas is it's not just all about you, or indeed all about the university you go to. It's also about the communities that you return to, the countries that you return to, and of course to your family as well. It may well be that you might be the first person in your family to have an overseas study experience. And that's really important, because if you can show your cousins and your brothers and sisters that it's possible to do it and it doesn't affect your long-term study and it's actually a wonderful experience, then you can inspire many others to follow the same path. It's also very important for communities. Regardless of your subjects of choice, whatever you come back with will, I'm sure, be valuable to your local community, and you can bring new ideas perhaps, and certainly new perspectives about what that particular country that you visited is like. And certainly we feel that between nations, the people-to-people exchanges between students and scholars going back and forth is very, very important to good international relations and greater understanding. And let's face it, that's a very, very important thing that we have going on right now. IIE, the Institute of International Education, is one of the premier organisations globally in terms of international students and exchange. We've been around for almost 100 years, and we've been involved with some of the most famous scholarship programs in the world, such as the Fulbright Scholars Program. But we also have an extensive network of offices, affiliates and contacts that support students as they go overseas, and support US students and support students from outside the US going to the US to study. So we have an extensive network of support, and I think we really understand the international student experience. So whenever you're working or going through a program that's been sponsored or activated by IIE, you know that you'll be well supported. You can find out more about IIE and the work that we do on behalf of, for example, the US government in terms of our Fulbright scholarship programs. In terms of all the other programs that you do, you can go onto our website. We have a fantastic local office in Hong Kong, and we have offices in the region, including Bangkok, Jakarta, New Delhi. And really anything that you want to know about international study, whether you're a US student or a student from another part of the world, I'm sure if you go on our website, you will be able to find the information you're looking for, or there'll be opportunities to connect with us by email to find out more. So best of luck, and we hope to see you in some other part of the world sometime.